Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another DC review, and in this DC review I'll be covering Night Terrors issue 2, Action Comics issue 1, and Detective Comics issue 1 connected to the Night Terrors story that is happening here. I will now get things organised for the first one that will be covered. Alright. The first one that I'll be beginning with will be Night Terrors issue 2, done by Joshua Williamson. And first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which we do get to see Batman, Wesley Dodds, and also Deadman in the story. I'll bring across my thoughts again. What I actually think of the idea of Night Terrors is that I feel that this is almost like to be a bit of a love letter to Neil Adams' character of Deadman, and why it's sort of like being done in such a way to sort of like put him in the spotlight more than the other characters, but also using the other characters as vessels as a type of way to maybe share more or put more into his universe. So for this cover, I give a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art, to which we'll have a look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. So as the story begins, we have Deadman, who is in the body of Batman, who catches up with Wesley Dodds. And we can see that he has his gun there. That puts people to sleep. And there's a bit of a discussion that happens between them. We move a little bit further into the story, to which we, of course, end up catching up with seeing the character of Insomnia and also Terrific Tech, with Mr. Terrific and also Red Tornado. And last but not least, we get to encounter the Sleepless Knights at the end of the story. For the internal art, I gave it a 7 out of 10, so pretty average. So moving into the next area, and that is the area of the story. So first things first, did this story give us any comic references? No, it didn't, though it might not hurt to include any. Next is the area of time, is when is this taking place time-wise? No indication. The locations we got to see here were the Arkham Tower and also a Terrific Tech location. The key cast of characters were Deadman, Boston Brand, Batman, Wesley Dodds, Insomnia. We also had Red Tornado, Mr. Terrific, and we also got to see the Justice League shown in an image. For the overall story rating for this, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move to the next one that I'll be reviewing, or covering a review on, and that is Action Comics. So seeing that this Action Comics one has 3 stories, I'm going to rate it all together as one story. So moving into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as we look around the beginning, middle and of course the end. And also in between the stories to see what is actually happening with the cast of characters. So the first story begins with the character of Power Girl and some of the things that are happening with her. We get to see where she meets up with Superman, but we also learn that she's in some type of machine whilst this is happening. Story continues, we get to see a little bit more around her character, until of course we begin the next story, which is the Stuff of Nightmares Part 1. In this, we get to see the characters of the super twins, which should be passed off to another character and not Superman himself. We also get to see where one of the twins has a bit of trouble, sort of like over certain events that have taken place recently, until we get to see this shocking ending. Well, somewhat. So we get to see a little bit more fighting, and last but not least, towards the end. For the internal art, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the story. First things first, did this story actually give us some comic references? And sure enough, it did, to issue 1056 of Action Comics. Next is the area of time, to which we got no indication of. The location that we do know this is taking place within one of the stories is Metropolis. The cast of characters consisting of Superman, Power Girl, Ophel and Ursula Roa. We got to see Calyx, we got to see Cyborg Superman, and also King Kong. For the overall story rating, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Now it's time to move on to Night Terror's Detective Comics. So, as we move into Night Terror's Detective Comics, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that's happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as we look around the beginning, middle and end, and also what's happening story-wise. As the story begins, we seem to follow the character of James Gordon, or Jim Gordon. And I think if I were to do this version Night Terror-wise, I think they chose a really bad execution here. And I'll point it out towards the end. Of course, we get to see some things that sort of like relate to some form of horror here. Almost like horror-like cages. Linking to the villain in the story, and of course we've got Jim Gordon doing what he's doing, and also who one of these key villains are. We get to see a return of sorts with Jim Gordon's old armor from the New 52. And last but not least, towards the end, I must admit, this character at the beginning here almost reminds me of the Batman Who Laughs. And it also sort of makes one think if they're going to try to bring back that character again. Yeah, a character that many of us got sick of in reading DC Comics. For the internal art, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the area of the story. First things first, did we get anything time-wise? No, we didn't. We had the next swing, which is locations, Gotham, and of course, I've written something terribly here. I think it's a tower of sorts, or prison of sorts. The key cast of characters consisting of Jim Gordon and Insomnia. For this racing, I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. I didn't really enjoy it that much. So for it, I think if I were to like do a detective story, maybe around the character of Jim Gordon, I think a better story, which would probably be a better nightmare for him, would be say if all the inmates of, say, maybe Arkham Tower or Arkham Asylum have escaped, they're wreaking havoc. That would make more sense for a Night Terror's story. Add a little bit of, say, maybe some gas of sorts. And, of course, you'd be able to, like, maybe scarecrow gas or something like that. And as he's maybe approaching said villains, that they change into something else. Into these night creatures that we're seeing in the story. And that would, that I feel would make more sense, because you'd also see his effect in the story as to, okay, is this something that he has to overcome, or is this something that he really has to tackle and sort of like attempt to kill off? For the overall story rating, I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.